What is going on, fam? How is everybody doing? I hope y'all are having a great middle of the week, hump day in this authoritarian nation. Listen, fam. Listen, and listen to me closely, fam. Listen to me closely. We have done a lot of work in terms of this whole conversation around Black capitalism and the problems and some of Nixon. But I came across something the other day, some great reporting, some absolutely great reporting by a gentleman named David Sirota. So he put this up, and I like to give credit where credit is due. I'm not one of those people who just, I had a fine idea. No, I saw this on Twitter. And I said, let me do a little digging. Because people love to talk about, oh my God, there's some Illuminati people out there that be, but we don't really talk about who these people may be. So he says 50 years ago, the most powerful media, right, and corporate execs created a task force to implement the Powell Memo that urged corporations to buy elections and skew news to make it more pro-business. And they have a new book called Master Plan. I ordered it. I haven't received it yet, but they have a new book called Master Plan where they document this. And if you go to the bottom here, you see all of the names. It's a little cut off there. All of the names he's talking about. And the Lewis Powell Memo. Now, here's the thing. Powell was, I think, appointed by Nixon. He was a former appointed to the Supreme Court. He was a former corporate lawyer. Now, stay with me, right? And it was in reaction to after it became enraged by a 1971 Fortune magazine article detailing Ralph Nader's legislative successes. And I want to put to you all that, yes, it is part Ralph Nader, but there were, for those of you all who remember, there were a lot of successes, right? If you think about the 1971 Powell Memo, there were a lot of successes that led up to that. Remember, in addition to all the other stuff, we had the civil rights movement. We had a whole bunch of stuff, right? So I want you all to consider that the thing that we're actually experiencing right now in terms of media, in terms of consolidation, in terms of monopoly, in terms of all of that can tie back to this memo and something, movements that led up to that memo, that led up to that conversation, concerns that were being had. Now, because I want to tie it back to ADOS, I always want to tie everything back to lineage, because we had just had a successful civil rights movement where we got legislation, finally got some rights, didn't get no wealth. But we also had our leaders criticizing capitalism, right? You even from the Black Panthers, and we'll get to that, to King, you had people criticizing capitalism, and that they said was a problem because that stood to harm them and bring disorder into society. So they said we have to do something about everything that's happening, and one of the ways that they decided to do something about it, in my view, was Black capitalism. But we're gonna get to that, because if you go back to 1971, there's a great site that he shared which shows you how everything started going wrong. Like, all of a sudden, rich folks started getting more money, and all of this stuff started happening around the same time. It started happening right around 1971. And so you have to say, the same thing he was saying. What happened in 1971? What happened where we saw the big people? How did the wealthy start getting wealthier and we started losing ground? How did all that stuff happen? What did this mean? Top 1% is skyrocketing in that second chart. And look at how the bottom just stagnates there. So how do we get here? What happened? See, one of the problems is I hear people say, I don't care what another man got, don't make me know, never mind. Listen, fam. These people are always plotting on you. Now, you can decide you don't want to fight, but don't you think ain't someone fighting you? They didn't even, you look at 1971, and that's just the memo. The other memo I'm going to show you from Alan Greenspan to Richard Nixon. Remember, Nixon got elected, what was it, 68? Took office like 69 or whatever? Let me know if I'm right. But that there's a 1966 or 68 memo to him saying, basically, you got to do something about these Negroes. And you have to figure out a way to help them understand that they're not owed anything. Let me say, the civil rights movement. You have to figure. Alan Greenspan, who's the Mr. Chair of the federal whatever, and that's like guy, little flat faced man, little owl faced man. Here, you have him saying you got to do something. You have to do something. Everything. When you go look at what the man said, it does look like everything starts to change in 71 because they have a master plan. Meanwhile, we talking about, I don't know what nobody else. It don't bother me none. Now, there's a hint at this in Mirza Baradaran's book, right? And I found a kind of quote about this. I found this to just bring up, and let's go back there because we've absolutely read that. But let's go back there for a second because we want to remember that in 1968, it was the Kerner Commission report, which basically said you have to have some kind of redistribution. You have to have massive investment in ADOS communities. There's no other way to do it. You have to have a massive, there is no way out of this without the government investing and doing things and taking a very different track. So the Kerner report comes closest the U.S. ever got to an official acknowledgement of its history of racial injustice, spoke to the phenomenon of protest and unrest in America's segregated cities. The final report determined that the riots stemmed from poverty, racism, inequality, and other social ills. But the underlying cause was segregation. Segregation and poverty have created in the racial ghetto a destructive environment totally unknown to most white Americans. The report said, what white Americans have never fully understood, but what the Negro can never forget, is that white society is deeply implicated in the ghetto. White institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, and white society condones it. This was a condemnation of white people. Even if you did not do it, you didn't walk in there with a hammer and a nail and build the ghetto, you benefit from it, and you produced the government that produced the ghetto. And somebody has to eat the failure in this country, and they decided it was going to be us. So the Kerner report is a condemnation. So you're coming out of that. Now, America did what America does. America found a way not to deal with what it does. The thing that you did, you don't want to have justice. We don't want to move in the directions of justice. Right? We don't want to move that way. Hit the like, fam, and subscribe if you have not subscribed. Go on and do it. Go on and do it right now. So the Kerner report is, you got to understand, the Kerner report in 1968 is condemning. 3 years later, instead of saying, yeah, we got to do something, all these people come out. There's a memo that comes out and says, this is how we consolidate power. These radicals have gone too far. The socialists, whoever, everybody, it wasn't just ADOS movement, it wasn't the civil rights movement, other movements too. They've gone too far. We are going to bring them to heel. No, we're not going to do no justice. We're going to deal with disorder. That was the Powell memo, right? So let me just go here. Now, let me show you what, and this is, I shouldn't go to Nixon just yet, I don't think. Let me go back. Let me go to another part of this article real quick. The Kerner report. The report was an unapologetic excoriation of white society, which the commission deemed guilty, not just of racism, but of apathy towards black poverty. The only way to address these injustices, according to the report, was through a robust federal response. Nixon won the 1968 election by promising that he would do no such thing. But first, his campaign had to get the messaging right. Alan Greenspan, who served as Nixon's economic advisor, addressed claims by black activists for reparations in a private campaign memo to candidate Nixon in 1978. In 1967, called the Urban Riots of 1960. Of the 1960s. I want you to understand that they have always understood that reparations were owed and that there was a threat and that we were marching towards it. The difference is they did something political to stop it. Reparations were never a pipe dream. They understood that, hey, if these Negroes keep going, if these Negroes keep moving at the direction that they moving in, we're going to have something to deal with. Right? We're going to have some stuff that we can't message ourselves out of. So Alan Greenspan, who served as Nixon's economic advisor, addressed claims by black activists for reparations in private campaign memo to the candidate Nixon in 1967 called The Urban Riots of the 1960s. He wrote that capitalism itself was under attack by demands by black militants and that ghetto riots have become a rallying cry for an attack upon America's system for free enterprise and individual rights. Greenspan outlined his reasoning. This is what he said, and I'll show you the memo in a second. The critical question is, of course, and shout out, somebody sent me this memo. I asked somebody, I said, can somebody find the memo for me? I asked this like a year ago, and somebody sent it and found it for me. I can't remember, but love you. The critical question is, of course, whether the Negroes are correct in claiming that they have been exploited and that their violent reaction is the rational response. There can be little doubt that discrimination has been rampant. However, this is a however that you want to pay attention to. However, the charge of exploitation in the sense of value being extracted from the Negroes without their consent for profit of the whites is clearly false. The distinction between discrimination and exploitation is all the difference in the world. They make up stuff. They just make up anything. The distinction between discrimination and exploitation is all the difference in the world. As if you are not exploited by being discriminated against, as if your labor is worthless or worth less. They will make up something, though, to avoid justice. Let me tell you. Ooh, justice makes them itch. In other words, and this is what Greenspan was telling Nixon in that memo. In other words, because whites had not profited directly from black misery, but they had. But I'm pushing that aside. Reparations should be rejected. Moreover, he underscored in the memo that any capitulation to demands for federal spending in the ghetto was a threat to free enterprise. Hold on. You can send money halfway across the world. Rebuild communities halfway across the world. But what you ain't gonna do, and what you better not do, is do nothing for the Negro, because that's a threat to free enterprise everywhere. What you ain't gonna do is make the Negro whole after multi-generational oppression, because that is a threat to free enterprise. What damning ignorance and just the come on. Listen, fam, we know it's ridiculous. You ain't gotta even say it. Greenspan believed that the cries of exploitation were misguided because black activists had misunderstood capitalism and the natural market of the ghetto and had erroneously and unfairly blamed whites for exploitation. He was correct when he said profit rates in slum areas are doubtless distressingly low considering the risk. But he erred when he concluded based on that observation that the white community was not gaining any advantage in profit and that their therefore cries of injustice were erroneous. It's all the benefit in the world. What are we talking about? I'm trying to figure out what we're talking about. But let me just go ahead for a second, because this is the actual memo. This wasn't, understand the Powell memo, the Supreme Court, the guy who was appointed to the Supreme Court by Nixon, the Powell memo came out in 1971, which Sirota talked about. This memo was written in 1967. Isn't that date on there? I can't have, y'all know. Blind as a bat. Yeah, September 26, 1967. Now, you got to understand, in the midst, somebody get me the exact date of King's assassination. This was 1967. Somebody get me the exact date of King's assassination. Day, month, and year. I just want you to get it for me, because I want y'all to show y'all. These people were never thinking about the right way to the right thing to do on our behalf. That was never part of the conversation. 4468. The man wasn't even 4468. April 4th, 1968. I want you to look at this. This draft was in September 15th. Is that what it said? September. Oh, I'm sorry. 26, 19. Dang, I can't see. I need new eyes. 1967. Isn't that what I see? Was that 57? That's 6. Yeah, 1967. Like, understand, they're already, while we're talking, they're planning on what they're not going to do for us. While the man is not dead. And they aren't talking about, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is what we have to do. This is what the Negroes are owed. They're telling you what they're not going to do. Do you understand who we're dealing with? Do you understand what we're up against? Do you understand the level that they will connive? Do you understand what they will do while we're fighting, while we're dying? While it's plain that we're being exploited. Like, it could be, it's easy to see. Like, we don't even have any kind of legal basis to go in and do nothing. Right? Like, you're talking about why that cannot happen. And so when we talk about, and for those of you all who want to, the memo is about 3 pages long. I'm not going to bore everybody to death, but this gives us some of what was a little bit of the summary of kind of what was said. And this is one of the quotes. He rejected, and this is, we're talking about Greenspan, the notion that the Negro ghetto must be elevated to the level of affluence of middle-class America. This can only be done by massive government expenditures. He said, listen, we cannot prioritize making Negroes equal. Their lot is their lot. Because if we try to make them equal or affluent, if we try to make them have access to the point to where they can have what white folks have, it's going to be too much money. So we got to figure out a way to do this, but we cannot do this in a way that y'all thinking about in terms of government really intervening. That Kerner report, throw it away. We're going to do something different. You got to figure out something different. And that something different, that master plan for Nixon was black capitalism. Justice Powell had a whole thing he sketched out. Right? They always plot. That's the thing that people don't understand. They always plot. People, I don't really do politics. Well, child, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about you. You cannot do whatever you don't want to do. I can't make you. I can't beat you. But I don't envy the rich and I don't pity the poor. You mutt. Like, this is not about envy. These people are behind closed doors deciding that you are going to stay in the ghetto because it's too expensive to give you the opportunity to really bring you out of the ghetto. Because that would mean remaking and refashioning America, and nobody's doing that, and that would be dangerous to free market enterprise. That's what they're doing to you, your kids, your grandkids, and you're telling me that you don't really do politics, you don't really do priority, you don't really do none of what I'm talking about. But I really do what you're saying. This is what else he said. And he tries to draw this distinction between discrimination, which Greenspan acknowledges, versus exploitation, which he denies, which is significant because reparations argument hinge on exploitation, unpaid labor, wealth extraction. So he says basically, you might have been discriminated against, maybe, but you were not exploited. That may have happened to you, but you were not exploited. No. What you talking? I exploited. What about my life? No. And so Nixon, you know, but before we get to the bigger things about Nixon, let me just put up some of the things that King said about capitalism. Because when you see, this is why they thought, oh my gosh, we have to rein this in. There's too much capitalism, too much people attacking capitalism. We got to get this together. There's too many people talking about redistribution and reparations. We got to get this together. But people keep telling me reparations was never no threat. Wasn't nobody ever going to do that. Well, no, they set it up to where you wasn't going to do it. So this is some of the stuff that King said. We must recognize that we can't solve our problem now until there is a radical redistribution of economic and political power. Redistribution. Call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, but there must be a better distribution of wealth within this country for all God's children. Speech to his staff, 1966. Speak to the clergy. The evils of capitalism are as real as the evils of militarism and racism. You have some of the biggest powers that be, whether they be from the Black Panthers or whether you're talking about King, who are speaking out against capitalism, especially racial or racist capitalism, exploitative or exploitive, whichever way you say the word. They're speaking out against that, right? They're speaking out against that. And right after that, you have a memo from you have Nixon, who appoints Powell. I think he appointed Powell to the Supreme Court, and Powell sends out this memo about how you have to take back power. And the way you take back power in that memo, he says you take it back through media, you take it back through the courts, we see the Federal Society. He said you have to have think tanks. He says you have to control media because you have to control how people think about this. We see that right now. We see right now the way they're taking back. You see the consolidation? They have this conservative person at CBS or whatever. You see all of that happening right now, the way they talk about it. Because it was a threat. It was a threat. Let me see if I can find the other one. Really, what's the other one? So Powell has this memo. And what's in the memo? Okay. Let's get back. Let's go from Nixon. Nixon was actually, the memo from Greenspan to Nixon was in 60, whatever I just told you. The Powell memo wasn't until 71. It's a 34-page memo. And here's what's in it. Powell's 34-page memo addressed Eugene B. Snyder at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, argues that the American free enterprise was under broad attack from universities. What do you see Trump doing right now? Taking the universities back, because you understand that when you educate the children, when they get to school, from universities, media, and the political left. He named specific attackers: Ralph Nader, Charles Reich, William Kunstler, and campus revolutionaries. Why was Charlie Kirk at the universities? Why is Trump in negotiation now with all of them, trying to say, hey, if you want to get federal funds, you have to do X, Y, and Z? Why is that happening right now? Powell frames the dangers as socialism, statism, anti-business sentiment emerging in the 1960s protest era. Right? So let me go back up here because I want to show something else. So that's the memo. But I want to show you something else. Here we go. So you got to think. Right before that, Nixon gets elected. Like 68 or whatever. Right before that. And you got to think about, I have this paragraph. You got to think about what he said and what he promised. He promised in that speech, that's one of his speeches, he promised, he said, you know what? He said, you don't really need this stuff that people are talking about. Like, you don't really need all of this. You don't need these politics. You don't need redistribution. You don't need any of that. What you need is to vote like Homer Pitt's whole world depended on it. He'll get his degree, then what? Laborer, factory job, or own his own business. A vote for Richard Nixon for president is a vote for a man who wants Homer to have the chance to own his own business. Richard Nixon believes strongly in black capitalism because black capitalism is black power in the best sense of the word. It's the road that leads to black economic influence and black pride. See why I don't like black pride? I don't know all that stuff. Miss me with that. It's the key to the black man's fight for equality, for a piece of the action. And that's what the free enterprise system is all about. This time, Nixon. Do y'all understand? Do y'all see what I'm seeing? Do y'all see what they was cooking up? Now, here's the thing. Sounded real good, don't it? Vote for this handsome young man and his books he got. He going to college. He don't going to be no factory worker. He not going so done with the time. You wasn't even supposed to look down at a factory job. You don't want no factory job, do you? You want to have your own business, don't you? Well, vote Nixon. Now, here's the thing, though. There is no black business in terms of ADOS business without ADOS capital. Now, there was never investment from Nixon, right? There was never any real investment in terms of starting businesses. There was only the optics of it. There was only optics of it to make you believe in capitalism, right? We're not going to undo the structures that have been grounding you to dust for generations, but we're going to change the optics of it. And don't you like to feel good? And don't you like to look good? And don't you like to wear a nice sweater vest and a cardigan with some books and look like you headed somewhere when you ain't headed nowhere? We see it right now. We see Diddy and them, all these people who were talking about black excellence, black capitalism, all this stuff was on dope and was running around with people with women and men of the night. I don't know how you say it without getting flagged on YouTube, but they were presented as billionaires. Diddy's gonna lose everything right in that jail cell. Unless Trump takes him out. And even then, he's not cash liquid. He kept putting up his house. That's why he kept putting up his house. He didn't have no money. This has always been a fraud. To make you turn away from politics and turn away from actually changing the structures of America because somebody is saying you can do it, you can get this money on your own. All you got to believe in is capitalism. And not telling you that the foundation of capitalism is absolutely money. It's absolutely wealth. So if you don't get that wealth that America has stolen from you multi-generationally, you will never really do capitalism the way they do capitalism. I don't care how funny you are. I don't care how smart you are. I'm not saying you can't even do well for yourself, but you will never do as good as you should do. You would never do as good as you would do if your great-great-great-grandmama, granddaddy, whatever, if you got the labor that they should have gotten, whether it's sharecroppers or slaves, or whether they got ran off their land. You would never do as good as you can do. You would never reach your full potential without your due and getting what's owed you. It might make you feel good. And that's why I have so much problem with people who just have a sentiment. Everything's a sentiment. Everything's about how I feel. I feel I can do good. I feel I can be great. Well, eat some Frosted Flakes. They're great. So what? You have never demonstrated that to me. I hear people talking about people. Oh, we lose so many people. We lose so many people. We lose artists and rest in peace D'Angelo and everybody else. But what? We don't have nothing to support these people. Like, we don't even have anything to support these people in the fight. But hey, Nixon told y'all to put on a cardigan. Hey, King, the Black Panthers, all of our revolutionaries that say, hey, there's something wrong in Rome. about how this all capitalism, so how it's working and how it's working out, and racist and racial, and we just got right back on the bus as if we had some money. We got right back on the bus as if we had some dough to blow. Remember what I just put up? By the late 1960s, Dr. King had moved far beyond civil rights and desegregation alone. He was openly calling for economic restructuring and reckoning with capitalism itself. And I believe that's what got him killed. Not saying other people hadn't already tried to kill him. That evolution terrified both white liberals and conservatives, and it's exactly the kind of critique that Lewis Powell, Alan Greenspan, and later corporate America were reacting to. They're always reacting to what we do. They're always reacting to our cry for justice. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're saying. I don't even know what you're saying. They were never gonna give us reparations. No. They knew they had to undermine reparations. They knew it was legit. They always knew. That memo from Greenspan to Nixon does not exist if they don't view our push for justice as a threat. It doesn't exist. They knew they had to find something different, find something new. Powell's memo says we have to take over everything. Too much is happening. They have control. Ralph Nader's in my magazine. We got to take it all back. That's all I'm saying. Got to take it all. They know what they're doing. Here your man is. Look at old Powell. Old he wrote that memo. He got everybody together. He got the, if it's one thing these people won't do is consolidate some money. Take it all over. We were still marching. King ain't even dead. They already planning. But you can't get us to plan. we be on Twitter talking about Yvette blocked me. I can't believe it. It ain't even like the current block. You can still see my social media, just can't say nothing. Why you always need to talk? Serious as a heart attack, and we be as unserious as cannot. They started a counter-revolution. We had a revolution. People died for our revolution. There were many others. I'm just speaking about us. I'm not saying that there weren't other things that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we had our. So that's all I'm saying. Let me bring this up. What else Powell's memo calls for? The memo calls for long-term. They do everything long-term. Long-term corporate counter strategy, funding think tanks, influencing education and media, mobilizing corporate legal power, and shaping public opinion and the judiciary. You see that with the Federalist Society. They got everybody on the Supreme Court. Right? It uses almost no racial language at all, but is written as a defense of capitalism and corporate authority. Now, mind you, you try to tell somebody today, hey, these people are taking over. That's why I tell people when they start talking about Project 2025, I said, listen, I'm not saying that it's not dangerous. I'm not saying that it's not awful. I'm saying that they have always been trying to do this, and this is a culmination. They don't stop. You think they stop? They don't stop. They don't care. They don't care if you outside getting bit by dogs. They don't care if you outside and your baby's being blown up in churches. They don't care. So for serious people, that would mean that our response to that would be just as serious. But it's not. You know how many people died and were hurt and harmed in the civil rights movement? You know how many people died poor? You know how many people died crazy? How many people were broken internally because of that? They didn't care. They want to sit in the and say, you know what they really got to do? They were like, how do we take back power? Because we're losing our grip on power. It's all about power. Everything is about power. I don't care what you're talking to me about. This is about power. Well, I can just do my thing over here. I can just, I don't even know, I don't really need no reparation. You need redistribution. You heard the farmers? Y'all hear the soybean farmer, little fat white men all over my TV. talking about how the Chinese ain't buying the beans no more. They were trying to get Trump to do a bailout. They didn't say, now mind you, and even though a lot of them said a bailout ain't gonna work, it's too late for us. We got other stuff going on. But mind you, I didn't hear nobody saying, "Oh my God, I don't want a bailout. I don't want anything for free. I don't want." Now they got the cattle ranchers, the people, the beef people, talking about what you do with Venezuela. You can't do that. Money and power. There is no heart. You think Justice Powell had a heart? Do you listen, let me tell you something. Sometimes you just born into stuff. It ain't your fault. Sometimes you just born into a fight. And that's just what it is. And it's your fight. And I just think of people just keep avoiding this fight because the people who have power know they were born into a fight to maintain power and to grab as much of it as they can. They know it. So let me just give you the timeline. Oh, no. This is a great little timeline. So it's a great little timeline, and we just stay with me. It's a little bit long, but stay with me. So the assassination of King and Robert Kennedy, the Poor People's Campaign in D.C., widespread rebellions, Fair Housing Act is passed, Nixon elected on a law and order platform. Sound familiar? That's 1968. On the other side, the beginning of the Southern strategy, federal support shifts from social programs to policing. Now, I'm showing you, there are two things happening at the same time. On the left side, that's stuff that that's stuff that's like happening. I don't want to say it like that. Like, not on our side. That's not what I'm trying to say. But there are two, it's almost like there are two things, there are two worlds happening at the same time. And what I'm trying to show you is almost like a collision of worlds. It's a lack of it's not a great term, but it is what it is. It's just a collision of worlds. So there's things that are happening simultaneously. So Nixon inaugurated, promotes black capitalism, FBI's COINTELPRO intensifies. So Fred have to kill. So at the same time you're promoting black capitalism, like these people are never who they say they are. That's another part of it. You cannot believe, don't you believe your lying eyes. They're going to come out here and say they are one way and they're going to absolutely be another way, another person. You cannot believe it. You cannot believe it. So at the left, I just want you to think about the left as like political and like a political and cultural shift, right? Well, I don't even know if that's the right way to put it. Let me think about this for a second. Think about the left side of your column as a movement. So think about the left side of your screen as like the movement and the political event. And think about the right side as like the economic and institutional kind of shift. So left side is movement, what's happening in movements, political events, and the right side is the economic and institutional shifting. Think about it that way, and it'll make more sense, okay? I do the best I can. So Nixon inaugurated black capitalism. On the right side, Executive Order 11458 creates the Office of Minority Business Enterprise, ideological pivot from reparative justice to entrepreneurship. So there's a push. Nixon says black capitalism, COINTELPRO is still happening, and we're going to give you business. Never happens. 1970, Kent State shootings, feminist and environmental movements rise, labor militancy peaks, and on the right side, business roundtable discussions begins. Corporations see need for coordinated lobbying. 1971, Powell Memo, August 23rd, urges business to organize politically, control universities and media, and influence courts. Nixon's new economic policy, August 15th, ends gold standard wage price freeze. Nixon appoints Lewis Powell to the Supreme Court. 1971, on the other side, marks start of organized corporate political activism. Heritage Foundation, 1973. Cato Institute, 1974. Business Roundtable, 1972. Executive Order 11625 expands Minority Business Enterprise Program. All of of these pro right-wing, pro-business organizations come right after the Powell memo goes out. Meanwhile, I have Negroes still telling me that we don't need to organize. We don't need no organization. We just got to get the culture together. Please shut up. Please be quiet. We need a bunch of organizations, not just ADOS Advocacy Fund. We need a bunch of them. But we got people who are way more interested in just content creation. I do that too, but I do content creation because I have to too. I love to teach, but I do it because we're not going to get, even if we got a bunch of money through the org, I'm not finna take that money, but you got people taking DVDs. And let me keep going. Nixon wins landslide re-election using law and order and Southern strategy. Watergate break-in. Shirley Chisholm runs for president. Ain't it something? Don't get me started on those sellouts, Shirley. Federal aid to cities and anti-poverty programs cut. Affirmative action faces conservative backlash. 1972. On the other side, oil crisis. Roe v. Wade, OPEC embargo begins global stagflation. Now, corporations, think tanks, this is how corporations are responding. That's the right side. Corporations, think tanks advocate deregulation. Inequality begins long rise. They winning. And it ain't even, listen, I can't even say whether or not we win or lose. We're not even in the ball game. We playing. Yeah, we got flashcards too, Jerome. We got flashcards. I can teach your baby to be a billionaire. Shut up, boys. If we have too many people who are willing to just sell out the community for the bag. But I don't think Boyce would benefit anybody regardless. But Nixon resigns over Watergate. Powell sits on court writing pro-business opinions. Business Roundtable, formerly founded, set stage for Reagan-era rollback of regulation and labor power. Now, listen, I got one more screenshot, one more chart. But I think one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show how, not this show, but I want to show you how. Yeah, old sellout Shirley. She sat, but that woman sat beside a Klansman. A segregationist at his bedside. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. The people who glorify her ought to be ashamed. And I think there's a reason why that happens in that time. You have to understand what's happening in that time. You put this woman who says I want to be known as a woman. I almost said something. I think I got the last one first, the first one last. So let's go back. I put them wrong, fam. So forgive me. I ain't got no producer. So let's go back earlier. Brown v. Board of Education. Corporate America, this 1954. Corporate America largely neutral but nervous. Montgomery bus boycott. Black consumer boycotts reveal economic power of protests. Sit-ins, freedom rides. Kennedy-era liberals begin modest integration of government jobs. March on Washington. Business elites. That's how they're reacting. Business accepts civil rights but resists labor and wage justice demands in March's full title for jobs and freedom. Civil Rights Act Freedom Summer. Beginning of white backlash. Barry Goldwater campaigns on states' rights. We back to states' rights. Trump said we don't need no FEMA. We're going to have to dig out. We got to swim out of the flood, child. That we don't need no FEMA. Voting Rights Act, Watts Uprising, Hart-Celler Act reshapes immigration. Johnson's War on Poverty creates OECD, CDF's Beginnings of Great Society. Black Panther Party founded. National Organization for Women founded. Anti-Vietnam protests. Business fears radicalization. Think tanks start discussing law and order. Detroit and Newark uprisings. Kerner Commission form. King denounces Vietnam War. Alan Greenspan memo to Nixon argues blackface discrimination but not exploitation. Kerner report in 1968 blames white racism for inequality seen as a demand for massive spending and conservative recoil. But guess what? Even though the Kerner report was in oh my God. Even though it's funny how it feels like Greenspan saw this coming, but he still won. Like at the end of the day, the Kerner report, which was right, and Nixon preceded that. Greenspan in his memo preceded that because in his memo to Nixon preceded the Kerner report. They out talk. I'm sure they won. They won. I'm not trying to say like they won. We over here with 2 pennies talking about black capitalism. They won. The Kerner report should have ruled today because it was right. They came back And they won because they had a meeting and they played the long game for decades. And I believe Project 2025 is sort of just a culmination of that. That's all. It's a culmination. It's a fitting in. That's all. That's it. So let me just put this up as I end. So you have the civil rights, Black Power, economic demand, 1963 to 68, movement shift from desegregation to wealth redistribution, Greenspan memo to Powell. Both memos reinterpret racial and economic demands as attacks on free enterprise. And they have on offer, we can give you enterprise. We never got enterprise. Nixon policy translation converts reparations energy into black capitalism, symbolic inclusion without redistribution. Corporate infrastructure, Powell's roadmap spawns Heritage Foundation, Business Roundtable, ELEC, the machinery that rolled back civil rights, economic gains. Judicial power, Powell's own Supreme Court tenure, delivers pro-business decision, et cetera, et cetera. This is quite a mess. I'm not trying to. This is quite a mess. Right? This is quite a mess, fam. This is quite a mess. It's quite a pickle we in. 1964, 65, 54 civil rights, legal equality achieved, but material inequality persists. Freedom, 1965, 68, freedom, economic justice. ADOS movement demands jobs, wealth, reparations. King critiques capitalism, elite backlash, Green stands power. And there you have it. They winning. And the problem isn't even that they winning. The problem is that we walk around thinking that we're winning. Like, we walk around thinking that we got the bag. You've never seen a bag in your life. You know the people who got the bag? The people who sold your ancestors. I want that one. I don't want that one. And the people who benefited after that from whiteness. Wealth is passed down through generation after generation after generation. It is not something that you can make up for in this lifetime. And even though I say that, and even though people see that, people do not seem to understand that you're in a country that you built and they have decided to lock you out. It's not a matter of, oh my God, it was always fancy. We were never going to get nothing. I don't even think we deserve nothing. We can do it. They knew that we couldn't do it. They just said, Greenspan said, listen, this idea that these people have that, like, there has to be some kind of opportunity for them to leave the ghetto, that's going to cost us too much money. We're not going to do that. That's going to cost too much money. It's going to cost too much investment. We're not doing that. They understood that we had a case, and they were figuring out, while King was marching, they were figuring out how to make sure that we failed. They were doing it with black capitalism, and we wanted to be the boss. And I think that's the time when we started looking down on jobs. Yeah, I can be a boss. I can be a boss. Ain't nothing. Every boss needs workers, and ain't nothing shameful about a day's work. Never will be. You work for somebody. I want to be my own boss. Good for you. So what? And what? Now let's talk about capital. He ain't want no factory job. What was the man's name they called him? What's his name? You see him here with his cardigan on. He don't need no factory job. They convinced us. Listen, we fall for propaganda. We fall for propaganda like a baby to candy. What's that 50 Cent line? Like a fat kid, little cake. We fall for it. Yeah, they right. Nixon gonna give us opportunity. But Nixon locked us out, and people have been, and these administrations have been locking us out ever since. And why wouldn't you? If you that big of a fool, if you can't count numbers, listen. I want to talk about redistribution, because redistribution is the way to get to ADOS capitalism. You don't get to ADOS capitalism without redistribution. American descendants of slavery, enslaved people. That means we were the tool that capitalists used to build this country. Now I need my money. I need my wealth. You don't get there to be able to do that without getting what you're owed. But instead, they convinced us that we could be a business owner. And they put a bunch of people in front of us who looked like they were owning actual businesses until you peel that thing back. And they didn't own it. And not only were they not owning real business, they don't manufacture nothing. They don't own the land with the oranges or nothing like that. They were running around. You peel back Diddy. He went around for years convincing us that you could be a boss. Turns out he was just selling liquor. And he was going, if you read the paperwork to the whole trial thing, he was going from liquor stores to liquor stores. Same thing 50 Cent was doing, going liquor store to liquor store. You remember when 50 Cent said he didn't want to reveal what was in the paperwork to his liquor store, to his liquor deal when he was doing F and vodka, because he said that would be a competitive edge if people knew. You didn't want to reveal it because you were not getting much. This is not black capitalism. This is exploitation. And the fact that they were able to convince us that exploitation is capitalism, and that being marketing for something, you can be a marketer for whatever you want to be a marketer for. But the fact that we were able to be convinced by people that this person who was marketing a white product was a boss is something. We got to fix something right here. Even when Kanye was doing Adidas, people were like, oh, he's a boss. Hold on. He's marketing a shoe that another company owns. Another company owns distribution. Another company owns the factories. He's a good marketer because he's a great artist. But he's a marketer all the same. He does not own the company. Just because you have him outside that time, he was surrounded by all them shoes I talked about then. People say, you're a hater. No, he's not a boss. And it's not his fault. We have not done the work. We can't even have our own record labels. We make the most beautiful music anybody ever heard. All kind of beats and moans and singing comes out of pain and slavery, and we don't own none of it. And we allowed ourselves to get duped again. We fall for all kinds of trickery. And at a certain point, if you want to actually take your power back, you have to stop. The first thing you have to do is stop falling for all this trickery. You cannot fall for this level of trickery all the time. It's a problem to just fall for trickery after trickery after trickery. Hickory dickory dock. I mean, it's just how many tricks can you fall for? How long are we going to do this? This whole black capitalism thing for us has been a con. It's been a scam. And we cannot have not black capitalism, it's ADOS capitalism. We cannot have that without some kind of redistribution that gives us back the thing that we were owed. And understand that black capitalism was just a dodge. It was just a way to get our attention away from redistribution after the civil rights movement, after the Kerner Report and all of that. And I do feel a way too about how the 1970s were the advent of Pan-Africanism. So we take our eye off the ball, off the economic ball, off redistribution in this country, off what King and everybody else during that period fought for. We take our eye off of that and put on a dashiki and say we're going to do black capitalism. How lost can we be? Just how lost? And listen, if we're ever going to get back on the path to real liberation and real truth, we have to look back at the mistakes that we have made. It's not my fault. We have to look back at the mistakes that we've made and reassess ourselves and assess our deficiencies, of which there are many. Black capitalism was a dodge. It was symbolic, but oh my God, one thing they figured out about us, you can play to our ego. We feel we big stuff. If you can tell us we a boss, yeah, you right, I'm a boss. I don't got to work nowhere. Nobody's saying that's not what. No, there should be jobs available, and we should have the ability to. Everybody should have the ability to buy a house and stuff. Like, what we talking about? No, I'm a boss. He bet you don't understand. I'm a boss. Okay, he just lied. There was never any money in the boss moves. There was never. No, it was just something to take your eye off of actual politics and actual change. So I just want to bring that up, fam, because I saw that going around about that Powell memo, and I think that they have been successful in terms of what they started to do. But it's also what I said on the Patreon last time. These people, the elite of white society, are willing to play the long game. They are willing to play a particular kind of game for 40, 50, 60 years. Like this thing that they started playing with the Powell Memo of 71, which I think they started playing before because of the Nixon. Like this thing that they have been doing this for decades. They have been playing the long game, keeping their secrets and pushing forth with their think tanks and organizations. We have people right now who will say, "Oh my God, Yvette, y'all got started in 2016 and we don't got no reparations yet." And listen, the main critics haven't picked up a finger to do nothing. They haven't made a call. They haven't joined they haven't done nothing, but they were criticized over 10 years. As a matter of fact, some of the biggest critics have been some of the biggest problems, some of the loudest idiots everywhere. Told all kind of lies, everything. And it's been 10 years. Y'all really started talking about reparations 2016. It's been 10 years. Well, you're a part of the problem. If you would just get somewhere and shut up. Or if you would just lend a hand to help. People have a lot of criticism and not no help. Hey, if you want to do something, join and help. Hey, I saw this. I think you might have a problem here. I can do this. That's my thing. No. Everybody just want to throw spitballs. That's not what they doing over there. They playing for the long game. They playing for years. There are people who are never going to see what Trump is doing for the rich right now. They died a long time ago, but they helped put this thing in place, and they rich. They don't even got to. But they consolidated power. And we don't have no wealth and think that we don't have to do that and more. If you don't have no money, if you don't have no wealth, all you got is people and discipline. You can't just have people, you got to have disciplined people. All you got is people and discipline, and you don't even have time. You better get it together. I'm talking about the group. I'm not talking about y'all. Y'all are the people who be here and we talk about this stuff. I'm talking about this group. We got to get it together. Ain't no time no more to be kids. These people are playing the long game for decades behind the scenes while we march and they have a plan. We had a whole Black Lives Matter thing and don't know what happened. That they suing. They don't know where the money was. Hey, we can't keep playing games no more. We can't keep playing games no more. Y'all know I had my criticism of Farrakhan as well. Justice or else, and then you had 2 marches over the span of 1995 to 2015, and I didn't see anything. I didn't see a political component to that. It was just a renewal or an atonement, as if ADOS men need to atone for anything. Before ADOS men atone for anything, I want this system to atone for what it did to them. But, hey, that's me. Y'all know me. I'm Yvette D. Carnell. So I'm going to leave it at that before I get too upset. I'm going to let y'all enjoy the rest of your night. If you're on Patreon, we will be there Friday at 2 to discuss things and enjoy ourselves. Patreon is Monday at 9 p.m. and Friday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. That's the lunchtime. People get their cubicle together. But I want to continue talking about this Powell memo though, because I think there's a lot to come of it. Not just what I have just said. This was just kind of an overview. So I think we have to talk about that. And I think we have to talk about, listen, we have to be willing to criticize everybody. I don't have a problem with criticism. I have a problem with criticism that is not constructive. I don't have a problem with somebody saying this didn't go well or Yvette, I don't think that worked out. I have no problem with that. But if you cannot, the reason I say you have to be willing to criticize Minister Louis Farrakhan and his Justice or Else and the first Million Man March, just like he criticized BLM, is because you can't see what you don't measure. And if you don't look back and do an autopsy of these things, you won't see where you went right and where you went wrong. It's nothing personal. I don't know these people. I don't know any of these people. It's about doing an autopsy about what was the effectiveness, what was the impact of that. And I'm not talking about just an emotional or cathartic impact. We get too caught up in that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, was there a political impact? I've talked about this before. Did you all take names, take numbers that could be used in activism later on? And if that didn't happen, that is a political failure. And by criticizing everybody, regardless of gender, that's the only way we get past these gender wars. We're going to be sitting up here talking about who can lead. See, the BLM women couldn't lead. And, you know why? We're going to be doing this forever. Meanwhile, these people at the top are plotting. They are moving. They're not playing no kind of games with you. And they don't care about what happens to you. They don't care if you live or die or starve. We have to stop. And all of you little clout chasing people who are doing this little gender sniping stuff, you need to get somewhere, sit down and shut up or find a job. Go work at Target. I don't care. But you all are getting in the way. And if you keep getting in my way, I'm going to get even more public than I got on my Patreon show last time. Keep getting in my way if you want to. Mess with me if you're bad. But anyway, fam, that is it. Please enjoy the rest of your night. I will talk to y'all later. Please keep it easy breezy. Don't bother nobody and don't let nobody bother you. Okay? Get a bubble bath and don't let it stress you out too bad. All right, fam. Bye-bye.